that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 322nd edition of Energy Week with the amazing him and the me. No?
That's me.
That is
That's
Tom.
him.
This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. I am George Harvey. He is the amazing Tom Fennell. And this show is based on material that comes up at my blog on a daily basis. I go to the internet, find what I can on energy and climate change, and usually about 15 items each day, sometimes fewer, but you know, I take what I can get. And they are put up with a synopsis to of the original article of about 50 words, a link to the original, and they go on my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can go there and look up the stuff that we're talking about.
Sometimes that's worth doing.
Yeah, you can click on the day on the calendar for the item that we're talking about, and it means you'll get like 15 items.
Well, some of these websites have some really good stuff on them.
They do indeed.
We don't have time to talk about them.
Absolutely. The first one we're going to do has got just a set of very interesting photographs. But we're starting on Thursday, August 15th, which is a week ago today being the 22nd.
Oh, we'll start out with one of those photographs.
We will start out with one of those photographs. This is the Malaysia 2, which is right now. You'll notice that unite behind science and a race we must win, climate action now. On the back end of that ship, at the stern, almost all the way to the stern, you can see a human being standing there. That is not Greta Thunberg, but it is somebody who's on the boat.
That'd be the skipper, probably.
Probably. That is a racing yacht, and it is even now racing across the Atlantic Ocean to get Greta Thunberg to a meeting in New York City.
Well, that's basically all it is. It's a racing machine.
It's a racing machine.
It's not built for comfort.
Not built for comfort. It doesn't have a shower. It doesn't have a toilet aside from a bucket. So this is from BBC. What do you got for a title?
Teenage climate change activist sets sail on zero carbon journey aboard the Malaysia 2.
Greta Thunberg has set sail on a 2-week journey by boat across the Atlantic Ocean. She will be attending 2 big climate change conferences in the United States. Is it really
She's
2?
about halfway over the ocean.
Yeah, is
now.
it really 2 in the United States? I thought there was 1 in the United States and 1 in Chile.
I think you're right.
But I don't know how she's going to get to Chile. Maybe the same yacht is going to take her down there. I mean, there's no way you can go by train to get to Chile.
Well, it's hard to get there by way of anything other than flying.
I think it kind of is.
I mean, you can go by boat. You got to go through the Panama Canal.
Or around the Cape. Oh, man. Yeah, that would be
about a 2-week trip.
going through the Straits of Magellan. Anyway, let's see. The journey will take about 2 weeks in a high-speed yacht called the Malaysia 2. The Malaysia 2 is a racing yacht, and as I said,
it's not designed for comfort.
Not designed for comfort. She expected to have some pretty serious seasickness on this, but apparently it didn't happen.
Well, I got a quick takeaway from her.
Yeah.
She's going to be at sea for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So she's about halfway there. She
Yeah.
passed the Azores. She's
Yeah.
out in the middle of the Atlantic now. This is a tweet from her. Eating and sleeping well and no seasickness so far. Life on Malaysia 2 is like camping on a roller coaster. Some dolphins showed up and swam along the boat last night.
Yeah.
So electricity this is interesting. Electricity on the boat comes from wind turbines and solar panels. So it doesn't even have batteries.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to do. She was objecting to the fact that air transportation really has a lot of big carbon footprint.
Well, in general, it's a big carbon footprint.
Yeah.
A very big carbon
and
footprint.
she thought about going by ocean liner, and that has a big carbon footprint.
It does, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
there we go. Should we move on? or
Yeah,
do you
let's
have
move
more?
on. I don't know
Okay.
if we got a picture yet, but this is the article. It is raining plastic. Scientists find colorful microplastic in rain. That's not a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing. It's raining plastic. A survey of rainfall in Denver and Boulder, Colorado concluded. Scientists at the U.S. Department of the Interior and the U.S. Geological Survey said they couldn't see the plastic with their naked eyes, but they found it using a binocular microscope fitted with a digital camera. We have a picture of plastic. That plastic that I just
That's
put up
coming
there
up
is
for the next
actually
article.
coming for the next article. That's plastic that was taken out of the sea, and those are fairly large pieces. That I believe is a petri
Those
dish.
are the ones they could pick up.
Those are the ones you can see. But we have another article about plastic, and it is of the same invisible sort that we just talked about.
Well, let's talk about this article quickly.
Okay, that
First
one
of all,
was-
there's a lot of pictures on the
Yes.
website.
Hmm.
And this was scary. They found plastic and said 90% of the samples.
Yeah.
Okay, and they've
Stuff
taken
is everywhere.
samples all around the world.
Stuff is everywhere.
Plastic has been a growing problem throughout the world. That's just what it says.
Yep.
When asked about how he felt about the world being awash in plastic, President Trump blamed China for the problem.
Well, President Trump yesterday said that he was the chosen one, and
Yeah.
it was, I mean, this is
And the second coming.
well, I didn't hear him say
Yeah,
the
my
second
sister
coming,
told me that.
but he did a few days ago offer to buy Greenland.
And for what it's worth, Brattleboro has a plastic bag ban.
Vermont does. It's a whole state.
Did they finally pass that?
Yeah, I believe they did.
Because up until a short time ago, it was just Brattleboro.
Yeah, Brattleboro was one of two communities that introduced that, and that article was from CNN, but our next article is from BBC. It's about the same thing. It appeared on the same day.
And again, from CNN, there's a lot of pictures involved. A lot of pictures on that website.
Yeah,
So let's pull this one up because this was one.
this is the one that
These are, would you believe it? Those are plastic fragments
yeah,
from Arctic seawater. This comes from seawater.
yeah.
Wow.
But the article isn't about plastic from seawater. It's
No, plastic particles are falling out of the sky with snow in the Arctic.
so this really is worldwide.
Oh, definitely.
You can bet your bottom dollar that the plastic that's found in Arctic is in. Oh, this is Arctic. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
but
going to say
I'll
Antarctic.
touch base on that before we get out of here.
Okay. Even in the Arctic, microscopic particles of plastic are falling out of the sky with snow, a study has found. The scientists said they were shocked by the sheer numbers of pieces they found, more than 10,000 of them per liter in the Arctic. People are likely to be breathing in microplastics even in the Arctic. And I want to mention here, they said per liter. They didn't say whether that was per liter of snow or per liter of water. My bet is
10 to 1.
my bet is that they're talking about per liter of water that is.
I would not be surprised. No, it's water, I'm sure.
They melted the snow and then looked for the plastic.
There's a lot of pictures in the video in the website. There's
Yep.
a nice video worth looking at. It's only short. It's an obituary for an Iceland glacier.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And researchers collected snow samples from Svalbard, which we talked about last week.
We did indeed.
Okay. The scientists also analyzed snow from sites in Germany and Switzerland.
Yes.
Some areas of Germany showed higher concentrations than the Arctic.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
And there's a quote from the article. We've got plastics in the sea ice, we've got plastics in the ocean, and plastics on beaches. Now there's plastic in snow.
It's disturbing.
Not good news.
I should mention, we're not going to have this next week because I didn't put it up at the blog, but I should mention that one of the articles that I saw several times today in my search of the news was a thing from scientists who said that they believed that the plastic that we breathe, the plastic we ingest from water, is not actually harming us. It might be harming much smaller animals, but it's not harming human beings directly.
Well, that's good news.
Well, yeah, basically this is dust. This is dust that's
yeah.
made of plastic. The stuff in dust is amazing, Dust, in dust you can find fairy shrimp eggs.
Oh,
Fairy shrimp are these little teeny things that live in vernal ponds.
Okay.
And if you go out in Vermont and look at vernal ponds, which are, vernal is spring.
Spring.
They're ponds
Short-lived.
very short-lived. They're ponds
Basically, it's melted snow.
yeah. And these ponds are just full of water for maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And if you go out and look at the life in there, you'll find these little teeny things called fairy shrimp, which look kind of like shrimp. And they are very short-lived. They hatch, they grow to maturity, they breed, all in a period of just a couple of weeks. And then they lay their eggs and they die. And the pond dries up, and the pond goes completely dry. And of course, the soil on the bottom of the pond can dry up, and if a good wind comes along, it'll blow up some dust, and the dust will include fairy shrimp eggs, which will then get carried to another pond, and if that pond doesn't have any, it'll get some.
There's one of those ponds right in the end of this parking lot, by the way.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting
It's
to
just
look.
right up already.
Yeah, oh yeah. It would be interesting to look next spring and see if there's fairy shrimp in there.
Well, let's move on.
Okay, that article, by the way, was from the BBC, and the one before was from CNN. I don't know if...
And this one's from CNN.
But we are up to Friday, August 16th.
Solar power is now cheaper than the grid in hundreds of Chinese cities.
This is amazing. Some 344 Chinese cities, I looked it up, that's a little bit more than half of the cities in China, were found to have solar systems producing energy at lower prices than the grid without any subsidies. Research published in the journal Nature Energy says, according to the authors, that would encourage further investment in renewable energy.
Well, the Chinese grid is pretty much driven by coal.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of coal.
Yeah.
And China has long relied on coal.
Yep.
But they started to close mines and coal power plants. And they have to. I mean, we've seen some pictures of downtown
astonishing.
Shanghai.
Yeah. And now they've got another reason besides air pollution to shut them down, which is that they're too expensive.
Yeah. Well, China's driving down solar prices around the world thanks to the scale of production.
They are responsible for 45% of all renewable energy investments worldwide.
I think we either talked about that or we're going to.
Yeah.
Because that rings a bell.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. This is a byline, but a Chinese firm also built the world's largest concentrated solar farm in Morocco.
Yes.
There's a picture of this place is huge.
The Chinese are also responsible for 80% of the solar panels made worldwide. 99% of electric buses. And electric buses are over 50% of all buses made now.
Yeah, not over here.
And I had a shocking thought, which is when renewable energy really takes on strong, which it hasn't even begun to do yet, the people who make money on it are going to be the people who have experience with it. And we have a government which is purposely preventing us from getting experience with it.
Okay, so the Chinese, we're just giving them another gift.
We're giving them gifts, that's right.
This solar farm in Morocco, as I said, it's huge. They say it's the size of 3,500 soccer fields. That's a large, and the picture of it just goes on and on and on. It's huge.
Yeah.
It produces enough power for a city the size of Dallas.
Yeah.
Just this one installation.
Just one installation.
Let's move along. We've got a picture of Kansas coming up here.
We have a wind farm in Kansas.
I think that's what it is, if I can find it.
That's what it says. All you got to do is click on it. There you go. This is from The Verge.
Renewable energy can generate billions of dollars in health benefits. Well, if you've been following this show, you know that.
This is another study. 10 states across the Midwest and Great Lakes region could see $4.7 billion in health benefits in 2030 if they stick with current renewable energy standards, according to a study from MIT. Building the renewable energy infrastructure that would give them those benefits will cost $3.5 billion.
Sounds like a lot, but compared to the health benefits, it's ahead of the game.
Yeah, you're way ahead of the game if you put in the renewable energy.
Well, this article mentions 10 states.
Yeah.
And they call them the Rust Belt.
Yes.
And basically, they're all in a row, starting with Delaware, ending with Wisconsin.
Okay.
From the Atlantic seaboard, right in a row. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana.
Michigan, probably.
Michigan wasn't included.
Wasn't it?
No, not
Okay.
not among the 10.
Well, it should
But
be.
it's called the Rust Belt region, and it tends to have poorer air quality due to greater reliance
You know,
on coal.
when I was a kid, I lived for years in Illinois, near
Yeah.
Chicago, and my grandmother had a house in Winchester, New Hampshire, which is just across the
Right
river
across
from
the
us.
river, right.
And we would come
You
to
spent some
Winchester
time
and
there.
spend the summer there. You know, it was a place that I regarded as kind of a home away from home, and eventually it became my home. And I can remember every single time we drove through Gary, Indiana, about 15 miles from Gary, I would get a headache. You could smell the steel mills. And
kidding, yeah.
and I'd have a bad headache for the next probably hour.
Wow.
And it was just as predictable as and it was more than 15 miles coming from the east, but it was probably more like 5 or 10
So
miles.
the pollution was getting
The
you in
pollution
a
was
brief
amazing.
period of time.
Amazing pollution. And they were just pumping out, you know, fumes from, I can remember 14 stacks from coal burning operations.
14
stacks. In a row. And
Wow.
I believe that was met coal that was being used for making steel.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move along.
Our next one is from CNN.
It is that. July was the Earth's hottest month on record.
According to NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, is that what that is? Earth faced unprecedented heat in July, its hottest month on record. July's temperature across the land and ocean surfaces worldwide was 1.71 degrees Fahrenheit, above the 20th century average of 60.4 degrees Fahrenheit. It was the hottest July on record since records began in 1880, besting the record of 2016 by 5/100ths of a degree. That doesn't sound like a lot of difference, but you know, we just get hotter and hotter and hotter.
That's what's happening.
And the
That's
thing
what's
that happens, and you know, you've got people who are out there saying, no, it's not happening.
Well, this is a CNN website.
Yeah.
And like most CNN websites, there's interesting stuff to do.
Yeah.
In this case, they got a 1-minute video,
Yes.
and it says what not to do in a heat wave.
Yes. Well,
And this is what they tell you: avoid ice cold drinks.
yes.
Okay. Avoid sugary sports drinks,
Yes.
and avoid high protein food.
High protein.
Yeah.
So don't eat hot dogs, hamburgers.
Well, just don't eat many of them.
Yeah, and
Doesn't say
and
abstain,
don't,
but,
you know,
cut back.
the ballpark meal of a Coke and a hot dog
It's not good for you.
is not
Not
what
in
you
hot
do.
weather.
Yeah, and I could have picked a lot of other things. but-
Well, from the article, significant temperature differences were seen across Alaska, Central Europe, parts of Asia, Africa, and Australia.
Yes.
They're all hotter than normal.
Yes.
9 of the 10 warmest Julys have occurred since 2005. We've talked about that on the show
We
right
have,
here.
and it's like,
July normally is the world's warmest month of the year. But this year's July record temps affected the Arctic and Antarctic as well. The
Yes.
Antarctic is in the wintertime,
it's in winter.
and it
Yeah.
still affected them.
Okay, we are up to Saturday,
Yeah, we
August
got a picture here.
17th. We've got a picture and an item from Clean Technica. This picture is one of those Tesla non-ads. You know, Tesla's got a lot of
Well, it's a
pictures.
Powerwall picture,
Yeah.
and there it is over there on the right.
On
That
the right,
box
you
is
can
a
barely
Powerwall.
see it against the wall. Tesla's non-ads, which they, you know, the pictures they distribute to the press to accompany news items, are all, they remind me a little
They
bit of
stick
the,
the ad right in there.
yeah, they
But it's
remind,
it's not a bad thing to have. I
no,
mean,
and you notice the solar panels on the roof.
Yep.
It reminds me a little bit of the old VW ads from the 1960s. They were very sparse. They'd have a VW bug and maybe one line of large type and a line or two of small type, and it just extremely simple. And these Tesla ads are all very kind of clean looking. Well, they're all, you know, there's no people in them.
No.
And they're extremely clean looking. You
Yeah.
know, here you've got an impeccable lawn and you know, everything is perfect. Except there's no people. But nevertheless, we shouldn't be
it's
talking
too
about it.
perfect for people.
That's right. Well,
Well, here's what they're saying about it. Tesla makes solar affordable again with new monthly rental plan. This is a good idea.
Yeah, Tesla is making solar affordable again with new solar rental program that lets homeowners simply rent a solar system for a flat monthly rate. To further sweeten the deal, there is no upfront installation cost at all, and there is no long-term contract.
Boy, that's a winner.
Details vary by state. You know, yeah, I'd have to look at that and find out if it's actually cheaper than grid power. I imagine it probably is.
Well, from the article, the estimated cost per kilowatt hour comes out to about 13 cents.
So it's going to be higher in some places, and it would be lower
in Vermont. The average rate's about 16 cents.
Yeah.
So it's going to save in Vermont. You're going to save money.
But a lot of states have electric power for prices that are below 13 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Scientific American.
It certainly is. And now, the really big coal plants begin to close.
When the Navajo generating station in Arizona shuts down this year, it will be one of the largest carbon emitters to close in American history. Of the coal plants to be retired in the U.S. in recent years, none has emitted more. But this plant is not alone. Other large plants are also closing down.
Well, that's what they're saying. The old small plants were the early retirees. But several of the biggest U.S. coal burners, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, and CO2 emitters will be shuttered by the year end.
Yeah.
And here's what it's all about. The economics keep moving in a direction that favors natural gas and renewables.
Yeah. I noticed in the news today that there were 4 coal burning plants scheduled to shut down in Illinois. They announced that yesterday.
4 more?
4 more.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they're not making money.
They're not making money. Our next item is from Clean Technica.
And we got a picture here, don't
we? We have a picture, and I don't know how to pronounce the name of this thing. But it looks like Skoda Citigo. But you know, I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know what the.
I would say Skitty. Let's. Well.
You want to put the picture up?
Yeah. Why didn't I do that? That would be helpful.
There you go.
I thought I had it up. I was looking at it and I was reading and I was saying Skoda Citgo.
Yeah, well, that's what our eyes do to us.
Well, let me give you the headline here.
Okay.
The Volkswagen triplets are going 100% electric, and I'll explain why after you talk.
Okay.
Why they call them the triplets.
German car maker Volkswagen AG announced that it is replacing its inexpensive A-segment cars, which are powered by fossil fuels, with 100% electric vehicles. A-segment cars are the smallest in the European standard, and the VW vehicle will be the only full EV in its class.
Well, this particular model that you're looking at, and I'll put it up again, it has a 165-mile range, which is not a whole hell of a lot. This is a small city car.
Yeah.
And you can see in there the batteries and all of that.
Yep.
Now, why they call them the triplets? Because they're all basically the same car.
Yep.
They're for sale in Europe and in different parts of Europe.
They have different
For
names.
historical reasons. VW is using the old-fashioned name. Like Skoda used to be an independent company, I think, from Yugoslavia.
Czechoslovakia.
It could have been Czechoslovakia. Yeah, it was behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
They made a pretty good car, actually.
Really?
The old
That's
Skoda,
kind of
yeah.
Amazing.
So they're almost identical. It was sort of like back in the 50s when you made Chevys and Pontiacs.
Yes.
The only difference was the chrome.
Oh, I don't know. In 1959, they had different fins.
Chrome, yeah. These things have the advantage of electric driving, though, which we don't think about. There's one pedal driving.
Yes.
Okay, there's no transmission.
Yes.
They're silent, they're sporty, they're low maintenance, and they're selling these things in Europe for a price around 20 grand.
Now, the interesting thing that to the people who wrote this for Clean Technica, I thought, was they're saying they're going straight from internal combustion engines to all electric. They're not going through the hybrid route to step from one to the other.
They're getting ahead of the game there.
And this is for 20 grand. You're getting a car which is not some tiny little thing. I mean, it's very small, but
it's a 4-seater.
It's a 4-seater. This is a 4-door car,
And this is not for taking a family on a picnic, but it's okay for commuting to work.
It could be for taking a very small family.
Small family.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We're up to Sunday, August 18th, and we've got an item from Japan Today.
This is interesting. Climate deniers get more media play than scientists.
Wow. You know, who would have thought? I would have thought that, actually, because that's the way the news media does things. You know, I have a saying. There's an old saying, those who can do, those who can't teach.
Yeah.
And I have added to that, those who can do, those who can't teach. Those who can't teach become journalists. And as a journalist, I will swear this is true. Okay, from Japan Today. Climate deniers have far more media attention than prominent climate scientists, a report shows. Why not? I mean, science is boring. This is a quote. Climate change contrarians have successfully organized a strong voice within politics and science communication, end quote, according to the report's authors.
Well, they're getting more news, but this is normal. A dog bites a man, it's not news. A man bites a dog, it's news.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and you know, I keep going back to this thing that when Barack Obama was president, he said 97% of scientists agree. And it was an old figure. And I don't even know where that came from originally, but a bunch of news organizations looked into it to find out whether it was true, and 3 of them in particular went to scientists and with a question: do you believe that human-caused climate change is not happening? And they all got pretty much the same percentages, but MSNBC had the one that was the largest study. They went to almost 70,000 scientists. They weren't actually going to the scientists. They were seeing that a scientist had published something and then checking it out. And all of the scientists they were concerned with were either climatologists or meteorologists. So they were all professionally engaged, and they were publishing things in professional journals. And what they found was that out of 70,000 scientists, there were 4, not 4,000, 4 who denied this. Before. And my take on this, which I've said on the show before, but not all that recently, is I would expect more than 4 positive responses if I went to 70,000 physicists.
You would have figured that, wouldn't you?
Is it true that you believe you are the reincarnation of Isaac Newton? You know, and I would expect more than 4 physicists to say, yeah, that's what I am. And this is, you know, basically we've got the overwhelming support for this idea, that is to say, that human-caused climate change is happening. And
there's a negative aspect of this, and what it is, and I'll read from it, disproportionate contrarian arguments misrepresent the distribution of expert-based beliefs and undermines the credible authority of climate change science.
Yes, absolutely.
So the public is reading this, and they're getting misinformed.
It's almost as though you've got somebody who says, I'm going to tell you that 2 + 2 is 4, check it out. And then somebody else says, I'm going to tell you that 2 + 2 isn't 4. And, you know, ask all the mathematicians and then ask this person. And if you put both of them into an article, it's going to sound like there's some kind of question about whether this is true. Yeah. Okay.
Let's move along. We got a picture here.
This is a picture of By Aerospace E-Flyer. We're still on Sunday, August 18th. And this
interesting looking little plane.
It is. We've got another plane coming up too. Yep. But they're different, which is why.
About this one.
Yeah.
By Aerospace and Oxis Energy as a company to commercialize lithium sulfur batteries for urban air mobility.
By Aerospace is a busy electric aviation company developing the future for our urban air mobility world. It has 2 electric airplanes along with developing projects. It is working with Oxis Energy to commercialize lithium sulfur battery.
So urban air mobility is going to be a phrase you'll be hearing more of.
More and more.
And it's basically the future. And what they're talking about is airborne taxi cabs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although
they'll land in your front yard.
Well, this is a little different.
This one is not.
That guy is.
Well, it's about the batteries.
The article here is about the batteries.
And the reason why it is about these lithium ion,
Lithium
sulfur versus
sulfur.
lithium ion,
Right.
is they're lighter.
Yeah,
And it makes a lot of sense for a lighter battery in an airplane.
absolutely. It does. Okay. We have an
We'll be
item.
talking about more on this later on.
We
later
will
on in
indeed.
the show.
We have an item from Nikkei Asian Review, which is hard for me to get stuff from because they only allow a very, very, very limited number of articles per month. So, you know, I have to play games sometimes to get articles.
To
from
get
these.
the articles. Oh,
Yeah.
they allow you to see a limited number.
I think they allow 2.
And they want you to pay them money for more? Or?
They want money for more, although there are ways to trick them into giving you more than 2.
I'm familiar. I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, you just get a third party who has repeated.
Well, or a second computer.
I don't have a second computer.
I've got about
so,
18 of them. I used to be a computer science
let's talk about the article.
Engineer.
China storms past the U.S. and Japan to take the lead in wind and solar power.
China has come to dominate worldwide solar and wind energy generation, thank you, Donald Trump, in terms of both its own capacity and the company's share of global markets. Again, thank you, Donald Trump. Leaving previous renewable energy powerhouses, particularly in the United States and Japan, to play catch-up. There was an article that we don't have that talks about Donald Trump he's doing this now, having already apparently destroyed about 20,000 jobs in the solar industry in the United States. He wants to do more.
Good for him. Boy,
Yeah.
we need some.
I
need more of that.
we've got some very strange things going on here, and we're going to pay for it in the end.
Well, this article has a lot of pictures.
Yep.
And it's got one picture that impressed me. It is a huge solar and wind combination plant.
Yes.
I mean, this thing is big.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't put it on the screen here. It's that big.
Is it bigger than all those soccer fields that we were talking about a few minutes ago?
Well, Beijing's pivot to renewables is one reason for a trade war with Washington, which is just what you mentioned. China's wind power capacity soared 22-fold and solar nearly 700-fold in a decade through 2018.
Yeah.
And we're going the other way.
Yeah.
China accounted for 30% of the world's renewables last year, with the U.S. a distant second at 10%.
Yes. So
Okay.
30% of the renewables are going in China.
And
Now,
that's growing.
Why are they going in? Why is China going to renewable energy? Well, there's 2 answers that I can imagine for that. 3
It's
actually.
cheaper. It's one of them.
It's cheaper. It doesn't pollute Beijing with coal
Yeah.
fumes, and they're actually acting on climate change, which of course Donald Trump says is a hoax from China.
Oh, of
But they're
course,
spending
it's a
money on
Chinese
that hoax.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, should we quit that one?
Yeah, let's move on to Monday.
Monday,
We got a picture coming
August
up here.
19th. We have a picture here.
It's an interesting picture.
It's an interesting picture, but it made
very
me think.
futuristic. But
Yeah.
they're actually making a plane looks like that. It's a
Yeah.
prototype.
It makes me wonder about whether this urban mobility thing is actually going to work. But why don't you read the title and we can talk about that.
Embraer, Bell, Brazil, and Uber Elevate, are shaping our urban air mobility future. Now there's that phrase again.
Yeah. The Latin American Business Aviation Conference and Exhibition is over and heads are spinning. Aviation startups are challenging our current air mobility system with urban air mobility. Embraer, Bell, Brazil, and Uber Elevate are a few of the innovators, and there are a
Pull a picture
lot of
back up.
innovators. But you know, I thought when I saw that picture, I thought, that's Embraer. They've got a picture there with 4 units in the sky. Now imagine what that city would look like if you took up as much
Basically,
as
they're talking about taxi cabs.
yeah, but if you took up 5% of the ground transportation in that city, how many vehicles would there be in the sky? You'd have a sky that was full of those things like mosquitoes. They'd be all over the place.
That could happen.
And I really wonder if that's such a good idea. I think people should slow down their expectations and figure that they don't have to get from, you know,
If
One place.
you like pictures of planes, look at the article.
yeah.
They got a short
yeah,
video.
There's a lot
Very
going on.
interesting planes.
A lot going on. But the other thing too is, I don't think these things are going to be landing in people's driveways, because I think it would just stir up too much wind and mess.
Well, in places like downtown Manhattan, it won't be possible.
But it will be possible to do it on rooftops.
Yeah.
So,
So
I
things
think
will change.
things will be a little different from what.
Well, they have to start making flat roof tops.
Yeah, well, they already do, obviously.
Some
but-
of them are flat, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was
So
from Clean
let's-
Technica.
Yeah, a quick
Our
takeaway on it.
Oh, good.
Urban air mobility equals small planes and short rides.
Yes.
Okay, and it's ride sharing. We've
Yes,
talked about that.
That's Uber is right there with this idea that you
And what
ride
they're
share.
saying is fascinating to watch the birth of an industry that will take flight in a decade happen before our very eyes.
You know, it's interesting also, my father told me that when he was young, and he was born in 1916, so this might have been 1930, he had this idea that people should be flying around in airplanes going instead of cars.
Well, I bet you Popular Science had articles
Absolutely,
on
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from Reeve.
Yeah, it is that. Indonesia has the potential I can't even accept this number, to generate 788,000 megawatts of power from renewable energy
Yeah,
sources.
yeah. That's what it says.
That's what it says, and they back it up.
They do. Indonesia, which has a pollution problem, has a potential to generate 788,000 megawatts. And I'm going to say that's the equivalent of a little over 1,000. That's something over 1,000 Vermont Yankee nuclear power plants.
Well, they're talking potential here.
Yeah, potential. 788,000 megawatts of potential from renewable energy sources such as wind power, solar, tidal, and geothermal. This is more than 14 times the country's current electricity consumption.
Well, this is potential they're talking about.
That's right.
But they have a lot of potential because of the way the country is arrayed. They got all this ocean. It's a whole archipelago of islands.
Yeah.
And they're all in the trade winds.
Yeah.
So they're also in a high solar penetration zone.
Yep. And
So they have a lot of potential there.
I don't know how much of Indonesia is 100 miles or more from the sea, but I would bet that it's practically nothing. And it's a huge country, and it has
geographically,
a big
stretches.
population.
It's bigger geographically, bigger than the U.S.
Which is hard. It's hard to grasp that in your mind.
Well, it's just a bunch of small, skinny islands.
That's right. Small, skinny islands.
And they also have, by the way, geothermal.
And they've got a large population. This is not insignificant. But you know, the thing that came into my mind when I read this was that article that we had last week, I think it was last week, about the idea that, or we've talked about it several times recently, about the idea that there would be a 10 gigawatt solar array in northern Australia to supply power to Singapore.
Yep.
And I thought, why would they get it? Why would they put in a system that long, which is 1,000 miles of submarine cable, when they could generate the power in Indonesia? And so I'm kind of thinking that these people who are talking about huge solar plants in Western Australia and Northern Territories are probably not going to see those come, although they might see very large ones just supplying local energy.
Well, it seems that northern or northwestern Australia has a heck of a lot of solar potential.
Well, it sure does.
They don't have very many cloudy days.
No, they don't.
And where they're situated, they get a lot of intense solar.
They get
every
a lot
day
of
the year.
It just goes on and on. Okay, we're back to Greta Thunberg here, and we've got
we've got another picture from of Greta again, in case you forget what she looks like.
And this particular
Same picture.
This particular article, which this is actually Greta Thunberg at sea on that boat.
There's the ocean.
There's the ocean. There was another picture of her that I really thought about putting up, which showed her inside the cockpit of this thing, because it shows her with a big smile. She's got a smile here, but that was a big smile. And I think she's having a lot of fun. Anyway, this is from the BBC. What do you got, Tom?
Greta Thunberg, how is her climate mission going?
Teen activist Greta Thunberg is now 5 days into her boat journey across the Atlantic
Ocean. She's further than that now.
She is indeed. Yeah, this is today. This is Monday, and You know, today is Thursday, so she's, what, 7, 8 days? Into the boat journey across the Atlantic Ocean as she sails to attend 2 big climate conferences in the U.S. They must be, this is the second time it said U.S. I must be wrong about Chile. But the journey will take around 2 weeks in a high-speed yacht called the Malaysia 2. She said the food is good and she has not been seasick. So this is just an update of that.
It's basically the same article, the same pictures, and there's about 5 pictures. They're worth looking at.
They're worth looking at.
And let's see, she's going to be at sea for 2 weeks. Been keeping everyone up to date on social media. I read some of her quotes, and we already said that the yacht doesn't have a toilet, a kitchen, a shower, or any privacy.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's like, I need to go to the bathroom, don't look.
Well, let's move along to Canada.
Yep, this is Tuesday, August 20th, and an item from the BBC.
Canada election. Charities warned against climate change ads. This is kind of weird.
Yeah.
This article.
This is weird. Canada's election watchdog warned environmentalists that saying climate change is real could break the law. The issue arose because one party running in October's election denies that climate change is real, so paid advertisements about climate change could be considered partisan activity.
This is kind of nuts. This is what the party's platform states. It is an undisputed fact that the world's climate has always changed and will continue to change. Duh.
Yeah, it's not the fact that it's changing that's a problem. It's the fact that it's changing the way it is.
Yep.
There was a more recent article, which I did post at the blog, about this. It was an opinion piece because Canada is putting a lot of money into subsidizing fossil fuels. And
are they?
Yeah.
Wow.
And billions
Good
of dollars.
politics, huh?
Yeah. And but it explained this business of illegality here.
What are we talking about here? We're talking about the tar sands and stuff?
It's mostly in Alberta.
That's tar sands.
Tar sands, whatever extraction methods, you know, but it's mostly tar sands.
Have you seen tar sands from the air?
Appalling.
They're horrible.
They are. Anyway, the punishment, if you will, for this kind of activity for charities is that if they do this, if they participate in political activity, they lose their charity status.
Well, that could hurt.
Yeah, it could hurt.
You mean like non-profit status?
Yeah, they
paying taxes and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. All of a sudden, they would lose their charity status. That doesn't mean that ordinary people or profitable organizations or whatever can't take a side in this thing, but it's still, you know, we're getting into a point here that I think is, yeah. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we got to move on.
We have an item here from CNN.
Let's take the picture up.
Let's put the picture up.
That's Greenland ice.
That's ice in Greenland, that's right. What do you got for a title?
At the bottom of a glacier in Greenland, climate scientists find troubling signs.
Scientists in NASA's OMG program, which is Oceans Melting Greenland.
Not oh my God, huh?
No, but they did it, the initials based on that.
I bet you
Yeah, they admitted it. Are investigating how ice is being attacked. They have found that the ice melt results not only from rising air temperatures, and actually primarily not from rising air temperatures, but from the fact that the ocean is warming.
Well, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, which is eating away the ice from underneath. Now, the calculation of the amount of ice Greenland has lost in the month of July is that it would raise the level of all of the oceans of the Earth 1/2 of 1 millimeter.
Doesn't sound like much.
Doesn't sound like much, but that is just one big island in 1 month. And that, when you think about the rest of it all, you know, the Antarctica and so forth.
From the article, it says 1 billion tons of ice lost here raises sea levels in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an interesting article. CNN again.
Yep.
There's a scary, and it is scary, 3-minute video.
Yep.
And there's a lot of pictures, and some of the pictures are animating. There's
Yes.
showing the glacier calving and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
interesting
stuff.
website to visit.
Yep, it is. Okay, our next one is from... I'm sorry.
Yeah, you read about it. Well, Greenland lost 12.5 billion tons of ice to to melting on August 2nd. Just one day.
One day.
The
12
largest single day loss in recorded history.
Yep.
And this is also scary. There's enough ice in Greenland to raise the sea levels by 25 feet.
Yeah.
Which would be devastating to coastlines all around the planet, like New York City.
Goodbye, Mar-a-Lago.
Goodbye, Manhattan Island.
Well, actually, that is true. At that level of sea level rise, it might not be possible to save New York. If you think about building levees and dikes and things like that,
yeah.
As you double the height, you quadruple the amount of material that's going to be needed.
Yeah, okay.
Which means that at 25 feet, you're going to have a huge amount of material that would have to be put in to guard Manhattan. And yeah, there are parts of Manhattan where you wouldn't have to guard them, like, up by the cloisters. But it's not much of that island is protected.
No, the where the island meets the New York Bay is very vulnerable.
Wall Street.
Wall Street. And
vulnerable.
Across the bay from that is Staten Island, which
Yeah.
is also very vulnerable.
And Brooklyn Heights, which is not vulnerable in the slightest. Although all the docks along, the waterfront in Brooklyn Heights would
I think
disappear.
they're gone now.
No, are they?
I think so.
They might be.
Yeah.
Wow, it's been so long since I was down there, I wouldn't know.
I used to work down there, and I used to look at them, and I think they're all gone.
Wow.
They had no use for them anymore.
Really? Okay, we are up to an item from Clean Technica, still August 20th.
It's official. Wind power is catching up to natural gas.
If you blinked, you missed it.
Whoops, I just blinked.
Yeah, the US DOE has released a report indicating that the price of wind power is becoming competitive with natural gas for electric generation in some markets. Actually, it released information that goes a little bit farther than that. Good luck finding the press release, though. It's a no-show on the DOE homepage.
Well, this is what it said, and you got to go look for it. The national average price of wind power purchasing agreements has dropped to below 2 cents per kilowatt hour.
Which is a little tiny bit more than half of the levelized cost of electricity from the lowest price natural gas plants in the United States, according to Lazard. The lowest price that they include in their listings.
Oh, they're anticipating that it's going to go lower than that.
Oh, it will. I mean, this is right.
Bigger turbines.
Yeah.
They're enhancing wind power project performance because they're bigger. Increased blade length.
Yeah. There was an article.
Taller towers.
A blade was delivered. I don't know if we have it in here. I don't think we do.
I don't think it's this week, but we talked about it.
There was a wind turbine blade that was delivered to the UK for testing that was 107 meters long.
It came from France.
That's right.
Yep.
Last week we talked about that.
We saw a picture of it on a specially made trailer.
This is as
with
long,
about a zillion wheels on it.
Yeah, this is as long as a football field with the end zones.
Yeah, as one trailer.
One blade, and that's just the windswept area of this turbine is going to be twice that. And
the turbines are just getting bigger.
They're just getting bigger.
Well, how are you going to get 12 megawatts out of a turbine without it getting bigger?
I don't think you are.
And we haven't seen the end yet.
No, we haven't. Okay, we're up to Wednesday.
Got another picture here coming up.
August 21st, and we have a picture of a micro dam. And
water over a dam.
That's
right.
What it says. Okay, this is from ESI Africa.
It is that. And it says, and I quote, Germany, 72% of power needs to be met by non-hydro by 2030.
This is
72% of Germany's power needs.
Yes, that's right. This is a difficult. I looked all over the place for a better title for this, because there's two ways of reading that. Germany, 72% of power needs to be met, or
they
Germany
should put a comma in there, huh?
Somewhere, 72% of power needs to be met is the way it actually is supposed to be read. The share of renewables in Germany reached 53.4% of the country's power mix in 2018 and is expected to reach 72.7% by 2030. Non-hydro renewable energy is expected to meet the country's power demand after nuclear and coal is phased out, according to global data. Now, I want to point out that 72.7% does not include hydropower as a renewable.
No, they don't. I wonder why.
Well, it has to do with regulations and who's getting.
And the hydro's been around a long time.
It has been. Who is getting subsidies? And
Yeah.
they're not subsidizing hydro, but they are subsidizing a bunch of other things. And what that means is, with hydro, you're seeing well in excess of 80% of the electric power, coming from renewables. And my guess is that that figure is very much too low. Wouldn't you guess?
I would
mean,
guess,
the only
yeah,
thing
'cause-
left would be natural gas.
Well, they started putting in some of these hydro plants a long time ago.
Yes, they did.
And we're talking the 30s.
Yep. Germany is dependent on Russia for natural gas. And I think they're going to be looking for some way of stopping that.
I think the economy eventually is going to do it.
The economy is going to do it. But, you know, this is something that I find scary. If the stuff that we were talking about last week, we were talking about the possibility that oil would hit a wall within 5 years. When oil hits a wall, natural gas is going to hit a wall with it, because it's all the same industries.
Basically.
And
yeah.
it's, you know, well, oil and natural gas are 65% of the export income for Russia. So what happens when oil and natural gas hit a wall?
Russia's going to hit a wall.
Russia's going to hit a wall. And what is Vladimir Putin, or whoever is in charge, going to do when Russia hits a wall?
Quit.
Well, you know, basically the United States is putting itself in the same boat with Russia. We want to have
We
big...
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We're putting China in the cat's bird seat.
it's really troublesome.
Keep America great.
Yeah, well, you know, I've said it many times. We have a government that wants to return to the era of... Koifel and Esser made the world's best slide rules, in my opinion.
Yeah, they
No.
did make a good slide rule.
Great slide rule. And Remington Rand made the world's best manual typewriters.
Yeah.
We could return to that greatness. You know, and I loved steam locomotives. Absolutely loved
They were
them.
neat.
They
Yeah,
were neat.
they were neat.
Fun to watch. Okay.
Well, according to this article, Germany has planned officially to phase out nuclear power by 2022.
That's right.
And coal by 2038.
Right.
So
but
they're coming up quick on that nuclear power.
I
They're
don't
gonna be
think
closing
I
it.
don't think there's going to be much coal left after 2030.
Well, let's move along
Okay,
here.
our next item is from Renews.
From Renews it is.
Yeah.
Renewables to reach 30% of U.S. energy by 2030.
All right. Germany's going to be 72%, and the United States is going to be 30%.
I didn't make that comparison, but it's back to back.
Back to back. The contribution of renewable power to total installed capacity in the United States is expected to double to 30% by 2030 from today, a study from Global Data forecasts. The study also projects that the share of coal-based capacity will decline from 27% in 2018 to 13.5% in 2030. And you know what I think? This article, you know, this news that of this projection was all over the place, and I think it's total rubbish.
You think so, huh?
Yeah, because it wasn't 27.2% in 2018. It was closer to 20%. And
Is that so?
yeah, and you know, I'm looking at the information that comes from FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
It's out of date by the time it's published.
Well, a lot of that stuff is way out of date
Yeah.
by the time it's published, and it's like, there was an item that came from the Energy Information Administration several years ago, and I was doing the blog at that time, and I was stunned because the thing said we will be at whatever level it was by 2025, and a different office of the same U.S. Department of Energy said we have achieved this much already. And the amount that we achieved already was greater than the amount that the U.S. EIA said we would achieve in 5 years. And it was solar power. You've got different people saying very different things. And in this case, I just think they're way off base.
Well, buried in this article is an interesting statement.
Yeah.
Renewable capacity expansion will necessitate grid modernization
Oh, yeah.
in order to manage a high volume of distributed renewable energy. We're going to see the evolution of a new type of grid in America.
We are, but I
The
don't.
big transmission lines are going to go down. They're going
I
to
absolutely agree.
And we're going to have a whole collection of microgrids.
A whole collection of microgrids. I think there will be big transmission lines
But
still
they're going
around.
to be bigger and go further.
And they will be organized. So I think it's organized so as to distribute power in hubs.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you know, and the hub will like
a spider.
exactly like,
Yep.
and that will tie into these little microgrids. We can have the grid could wind up not being a grid work anywhere so much as a network. Like
That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a network.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
which means Brattleboro has its own microgrid and Wilmington has its microgrid, and if the
It's
Brattleboro
just going to make sense.
if the Brattleboro microgrid has too much electricity, it'll contact the Wilmington microgrid and say,
You want some?
"You want some?
Yeah, we'll give you a
know."
break.
Yeah, right.
Well,
And
let's move on here. We
yeah,
got
we
another
have one-
aeroplane coming up.
one more item. This
Is
is
that
our,
it?
our last item for the week.
We'll do it. We'll fit it in.
Yeah, we have about 3 minutes.
Got a picture coming
4
up
minutes.
here.
We have a
Let's
picture.
get that picture. That's
This
an
is-
interesting plane.
And this is a particularly interesting plane for
Oh, it
various
is.
reasons. This is from Clean Technica.
Zero Avia is the name of the company.
Yep.
Testing hydrogen-powered electric airplanes.
All right, now this is a hydrogen-powered electric airplane, which means it may have a battery, but the battery isn't the primary source of storage. It's hydrogen
Exactly.
gas.
And it's for saving weight, just like they went
That's-
to a different kind of battery.
Yeah.
This way, this is a different kind of storage. They're going to
Right.
put hydrogen on a plane, and they're going to run a fuel cell to generate the electricity that's going to run the engine.
Absolutely.
Sounds complicated, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Zero Avia, based in California, announced that it is developing electric airplanes powered by hydrogen fuel cells. The airplanes would carry 10 to 20 passengers. This is not a tiny airplane. This is like a medium-sized commuter airplane.
That's what it is, exactly
On
what
flight,
it is. Yep.
on flights of no more than 500 miles. 500 miles is a fair distance. That's, not,
Well, that's a limit. Most of these are going to be a lot shorter than that.
oh, I'm sure it is. But, are we 500 miles from Washington, D.C.?
Just about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long ways. That's a day's train ride.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so they're going to take these on flights of no more than 500 miles. Zero Avia claims it will be cheaper to make the airplanes and it will be cheaper to operate the airplanes than conventional aircraft.
Well,
So-
what the article says, to date, the batteries needed for electric airplanes have been too heavy for flights of more than a few miles.
Yes.
So they're looking for a way to get around
And
that limitation.
I think by a few miles, they're talking maybe 150 miles. But,
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at here is I think, if you wanted to take an airplane from the Metro airfield in Brattleboro, does that exist? I think not. But if you wanted to take an airplane from Brattleboro to Boston,
There is one in
that would-
Keene, but there's
that would
no
be a
airport
snap.
here.
Yeah, there's one in Keene. Or if you wanted to go to Albany, or you wanted to go to New York City, it would all fit in. And
Well, that airplane there is a prototype.
yes,
And right now, it's the largest electric airplane operating anywhere in the world.
is it really? I didn't catch that. That looks like it's a pilot, co-pilot, and maybe 6 passengers.
Maybe 8.
Maybe 8. It's not a huge airplane, but it's not a Piper
Well, it
Cub.
says it seats 6.
Okay.
And it has a takeoff weight of 4,000 pounds, 2 tons. Most of that's airplane.
I had a friend who had a Land Rover. Yeah, it was more than 4,000 pounds. I used to have an F-350, and that was more than 4,000 pounds.
I had a big Chevy Impala. I'm sure that was too.
Yeah, that F-350 would actually carry 4,000 pounds of gravel.
What, really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
It was a 6-cylinder engine. It was an amazing truck. That's what I learned to drive in. It wasn't mine, really. Okay, we have come to the end of the road here, so we have to say goodbye.
Well,
I'm
we got
sorry
about
to
3
say.
minutes left on
No,
the
we
clock,
don't.
no?
We don't. We started a little bit early. So we'll have to say goodbye. Goodbye from
folks.
me and him. The amazing him.